News just hit the streets that inflation in Japan has skyrocketed to a 40-year high. The last time inflation jumped this fast was all the way back in April of 1982. What's even worse is this isn't anything new either. Japan has faced 8 consecutive months of inflation rising above the Bank of Japan's 2% expectations. Back in October, Japan experienced a huge wave of price hikes, with over 6,000 food items jumping in price overnight. And in November, almost 1,000 items jumped in price, with another round of several thousand items to get a hike early next year. And that's just counting food. Energy and utility costs are jumping to all-time highs as well due to the conflict in Ukraine, which is, unsurprisingly, causing hotels and restaurants to jack up their prices as well. Like the famous 100 yen sushi from SKYROCKETS coming to an end, and a household Japanese snack forced to increase their prices after staying the same for 43 years. But Alex, I'm just a tourist. Why would this even matter for me? Prices are increasing only a few cents at a time. Why should I care? The weak yen is gonna cancel out those prices for me anyways. Well, you do bring up good points, or so you think. And today, I'm gonna show you why. Today, we will cover how inflation got to this historic high, how this will affect prices for everything now and in the future, and how exactly this will affect your future visits to Japan so you can plan accordingly. You definitely want to watch until the end because the end will surprise you. Alright, let's get into it. So how did inflation get to the point that it's at now? The biggest factors to this situation is the conflict in Ukraine and the weak yen. Because of the conflict, Japan has seen price spikes in wheat, tobacco, and raw ores and materials as it looks for alternatives. More importantly, however, is where Japan gets its energy from. Severely lacking in natural resources, Japan has to import 90% of its energy needs, leaving the country's energy structure extremely vulnerable. Of this 90%, Japan imported about 7 to 10% of its energy supply from Russia. By slowly cutting ties with Russia, you can imagine this has caused prices for energy to jump considerably. And with simple logic, higher energy costs mean higher prices for manufacturing products and higher costs to keep restaurants or hotels' lights on. And with higher costs on food makers, restaurants, and hotels, well, you can see where I'm going with that one. This is only made worse with the weak yen. Yes, the weak yen is not a good thing. Here's why. Without going too deep into economics, the weak yen has been caused by the United States hiking interest rates, while Japan has kept theirs the same. This causes investors to pull out of the weaker yen and invest in the United States, leading to a stronger dollar. With this weak yen, it makes all imports, like foods, raw materials, and energy, considerably more expensive. And even though imported energy costs are already bad, this is only made worse with the weak yen. All of this combined explains how Japan got to the inflation situation it's in today. Now that we have a good understanding of how inflation skyrocketed to 40-year highs, let's break down exactly how much this has affected foods, restaurants, and hotels. So, as I already mentioned, thousands of items and restaurants have hiked their prices in the past few months. But the important question is, how much? Well, by the end of this analysis, the changes will shock you. Let's look at a few different price points that tourists will experience so we can get a general idea of how much prices are increasing and how much of a hit the wallets will take. To start off, the famous conveyor belt sushi restaurant, Sushiro, is seeing the end of an era. Due to inflation, they have had to increase their prices for each tier of sushi they serve. The famous 100 yen sushi has increased from 110 yen to 120 yen. The second tier has increased from 165 yen to 180 yen. And the highest tier has increased from 330 yen to 360 yen. The average between the three tiers comes out to a 10% price increase. That's an insane increase to occur overnight. Okay, well, what about drinks? Well, let's take a look. For reference, the 4 major beverage suppliers of Japan, Kirin, Suntory, Sapporo, and Asahi, have announced that their prices have increased from 4 to 13%. You might think that I'm using extreme examples to get my point across, but believe me, I'm not. Several news outlets share the same information, showing the majority of restaurants and foods are increasing their prices from 5% all the way to 20%. And if you know anything about percentages, you know how it will compound on itself, causing prices to skyrocket like a parabolic graph. So what might seem like small increases in price here and there is actually massive price spikes that can occur in a short period of time. All these price hikes can even put a huge dent in the tourist's wallet too. On that note, how will this impact your trip to Japan? And what should you expect when you get here? At the beginning of this video, inflation seemed like a pretty insignificant change and seemed like something that only residents needed needed to worry about. But turning it into percentages quickly showed how even the weak yen might not help you save money when you visit. Let me show you what I mean. Let's say a theoretical 2-week trip to Japan costs $2,500 for one person, not including flights, as that changes based on where you live. This cost would include lodging, food, souvenirs, and travel costs. Now, take the 5 to 20% price increases on everything you would have to buy in Japan, and you suddenly have to add an extra $125 to $500 on top of that original price tag. And that's not even including if prices continue to skyrocket, like they are for hotels right now. So here's some basic tips to save that money now. Book flights and hotels very early. Not only will this help you lock in your spot early, but you essentially lock in that accommodation cost now, instead of having to pay for it months down the line when inflation could possibly make those prices jump again. Number 2, while traveling to random restaurants is always a fun way to explore Japan, if you're out trying to save money, then carefully plan out your trip. Look up prices for the attractions and food early, so you can manage your budget within tolerances and not be surprised with a huge fee if you make a mistake. Lastly, try traveling to Japan during off-peak times. It could save you a ton of money. I hope this video helps better prepare you for your trip to Japan. If you want to plan your trip to Tokyo, click right here. And check out this new app called THATCH, where I can personally help you plan your trip to Japan. Alright, well until next time, I'll see you then.